we got a bunch of questions from Lynn that are just terrific. Lynn, are you ready? Okay. Lynn was sending me all sorts of stuff. I printed them out. So Lynn, these are good questions. How do you involve the stakeholders after the stakeholders kickoff meeting? Should I check in with those that are not so good at giving feedback? What should I do? Frank, you're on the spot, baby.
Okay, well, again, I'll make an assumption here, and please raise your hand if it's a bad assumption, is people know the model called situational leadership. And Marshall and I, that's how we cut our teeth as consultants. And again, we use the traditional model, not the Blanchard model that he had to modify when he left the organization. And really, your behavior as the coach should be predicated upon the readiness of the leader and the stakeholders to, in terms of how much help they need and how much involvement they need. If someone is at a very low level of readiness to provide feedback or suggestions, they need some helpful direction. And that can come from the coach. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. Again, as long as, again, the optics are you're helping that person help their leader. And see, as you probably all know from me, is I try to stay out of it as much as possible to get rid of the coach effect. But this is a particular case where it's not you that's doing really anything that helps the leader, that you personally doing to help the leader get better. You're helping a stakeholder be a better coach. So it's perfectly fine to do that with a person. And I'm assuming you're going to know that because, for instance, in the first month, the leader comes back and says, well, I got a couple of good ideas from so-and-so, but these other people, no, and I know they're from past experience, they're very uncomfortable and or they're not very good at giving it. And if you get that kind of data, it's perfectly acceptable to get involved in the process. And I assume the earlier you get them to be an effective stakeholder in the process, the better.
Right, so
again,
Frank,
yeah, go ahead.
Is there like a line that you can cross, and that if you're too involved with the stakeholders, it becomes more about you and less between the leader and the stakeholder? I think we got to be careful about that becoming over involved and doing the work that the leader needs to do. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, you're right. See, the one thing too is I would say be task focused. Remember, situational leadership talks about the situation. You adjust your behavior given the situation. Situations are made up of two things: a task and a person's readiness to perform that task. So if a coach is going to help a stakeholder give better feedback, stick to that task. Don't start bringing up anything else about their role or about the leader. Keep it very focused on what they can do. So in other words, you would say to them, potentially, I'll just give you an example. Remember, one of our skills is behavioral rehearsal. So, you're now meeting with the stakeholder and you're saying to the stakeholder, I'm here to just help you do a good job to help this leader achieve this goal. Is that something that you want to do? Yes. Okay, let's talk about giving feedback. What feedback would you give this leader? You let them fumble over their words and then try to just build off of what they're saying. See, here's the one thing you don't do, Andy, which is what could start getting a little bit dicey. And that is if you start putting words in their mouth, which isn't around what they wanted to give the leader feedback on, right? Just stick with their agenda, the stakeholders' agenda, help them frame things in behavioral terms, help them come up with things. And by the way, sometimes, see, this is what I do with a leader myself when I'm helping the leader go back to do somewhat of the same thing. As I say, let's talk about specific situations. And for instance, if a person is working on collaboration, and a lot of that takes place in meetings, saying, what meetings were you in last week with your leader? Out of all those meetings, which is the one they did the poorest job of collaborating? So I get them to stop thinking in general terms and get down to very specific situation and task and say, what did they do that you think either they didn't do that they should have done in that meeting, or that they did do and they didn't do it well to collaborate? So you're helping them get focused themselves on what the feedback they want to give the leader. Okay. Then have them rehearse it with you, and they say, now, your leader's desperately wanting you to get your insights and get your help, go have that conversation with the leader.
All right. So I'm hearing you say keep it brief, keep it focused, and keep it goal oriented, and don't stray too much. Lynn, is that helpful for you? Okay, we got a thumbs up.